dealing with these tragic times that we've gone into, not just nation, but as the world, with the same very, very much, and has inspired me very much as part of this Emuna is our future series, okay, and improve myself on a daily level. And it's a tragedy on a daily Emuna 4 class coming live tomorrow night of response that you get joined Chesed in Breslev, Israel. And this is the kind of people we need in our world right now, more than ever, the passing of such a great man like Rabbi Lord Sacks. That's what we're going to discuss today, alongside some other updates. And my feeling, I'm feeling very emotional, bottom line, is when I found out after Shabbat this week, came out and, a new week, new opportunity. I didn't feel totally great inside. Something, you get these little gut feelings that something's off. And I was feeling that, but I didn't know where to put it. Why am I feeling off? I'm hoping this week's going to be good. You come out Shabbat, the day of rest, the Shabbos, after connecting, and you've disconnected to reconnect, and you're feeling, closer to Hashem. But at the same time, the week's coming on, and what you have to take care of, and you need to suddenly start thinking about, what's ahead of me, and suddenly comes online, Twitter, Facebook, everything there, Rabbi Lord Sacks, Baruch Dynamis, and it's emotion, not just by the Jewish people, but the whole world. And that's been this last few days. I'm sure everyone who's listening now live and who's been involved spiritually, emotionally, or even physically had the merit to meet Rabbi Sacks is feeling the loss. And for me, coming from London and growing up in part of the United Synagogue world, I didn't go so much. Honestly, I consider when I came to Israel once, which was from Rabbi Sacks, and had a nice message from Rabbi Sacks to me. And I really appreciated that Siddur. But one of the inner ways of processing, at first, it just felt dark. It felt loss. I felt like, who is going to fill this space? Like, in the world, who is there that can communicate with such clarity? With such... Yeah, and someone just posted now on a Facebook Live, there is definitely a lot of, classes right now which reflect what you're saying about freaking out. I'd prefer to use the word anxiety or concern. Personally, I wouldn't get too dramatic, like this person mentioned a Holocaust, God forbid. Please God, the world has learned from history, and we as a people have learned, and we should never have to see such a tragic experience like the Holocaust. And that's something which I don't think we'll ever recover until the Mashiach is here from such a tragic event. I mean, if anyone was watching online recently, I'll mention it just because it's very inspiring. But Shalom Zion, who we had in the studio speaking about unity with Rav Shalom Arush, and he's a great writer as part of Abi magazine. And he was on a very nice YouTube channel, Peter something, San Diego or something. And he was on that channel introducing the world to the Hasidic community. And it was very encouraging. And he himself mentioned there that, a lot of the people in this community have gone through the Holocaust or were from survivors who went through the Holocaust. And I have Rabbanim who I'm very inspired by who went through the Holocaust. Now, Rabbi Sacks, I believe, was in London as I was growing up. I wasn't alive then, but my father was. And that was a different experience, Having such a upbringing in England, we heard about the Blitz and, all the different crazy bombings and struggles and ration cards that the English Jewry went through, and all the refugees that came through. And of course, everyone has a different historic experience. But if you go into Rabbi Sacks' bio, the point which really stuck out was when he was in university and he was starting to make his life decisions. That was, as well as his special upbringing from his father and his brothers, and his mother, but to have that moment in university, that picture that he could have gone in any direction, become a lawyer or anything other than what he became, and we would have lost all that inspiration. that we have to touch base with something which was fundamental. If you go to Tim Ferriss's interview of Rabbi Sacks, I just reposted it on some of my network. Tim Ferriss is an amazing podcaster and interviewer, probably one of the best interviewers around. And he mentions about Rabbi Sacks meeting Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's the conversation point that I want to focus on. And that was a very profound moment for Rabbi Sacks. That was where he learned, as my friend rightly put when I shared the link today, that the leadership that he understood, it's not just about finding leadership, which is what Rabbi Sacks was doing then. He was traveling around America while he was in Cambridge, and he was looking for that next level of guidance for his life. And thankfully, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he heard that he would try to get in, made time and sought him out and brought him in and spoke with him and empowered him to become a leader, and they developed their relationship to became the chief rabbi of the Commonwealth and the the British Empire, whatever's left of that, but became the chief rabbi of England, the UK, and he is the former chief rabbi. And me personally, that was where I met him as a kid, growing up, as he was on TV and seeing him always, giving very respectful speeches, and knowing that my family had connection with him through shul. So that was my upbringing, and that compared to his, I had my time in university. I also was seeking leadership, but the key point was that he was empowered to become a leader. That was the message that he left us with, that we can all become leaders. That was the energy he took from Lubavitcher Rebbe, those inspiring words, and he was able to bring it out in a way that not only empowered him leadership, but empowered everyone around him. I just heard his daughter give a eulogy to him it's on YouTube. You can look at it now on Rabbi Sacks' YouTube channel, and it's amazing the way you feel that he built a new generation of leaders. His daughter herself become a leader in her way of communication and her love for her father, and the legacy, how it continues to live on. We are in a transition time for all of us. I mean, we just went through the American election. It's now winter. I'm wearing my jumper or sweater, as we call it in England, jumper. You guys call it probably a sweater, or wherever you are in the world, you call it different names, pullover. It's got cold and it's intense, the transition time, because the world is changing. England right now itself is on lockdown. The chief rabbi of England couldn't even be at the funeral of Rabbi Sacks, and many thousands and thousands of us that would have been and would have loved to have brought him here to the Holy Land to be buried here, or where he was buried in England, to have somehow made it there, or at least still going through. And in Israel, the lockdown is lessening, but it's very gradual, and it's with a lot of patience. For example, you go to a shop, you have to stand outside for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, no, not that extreme. Stand out and wait for between only 4 people at a time. So all the closed shops are people waiting to get the new season. It's a bit of a balagan going on out in the streets in Jerusalem, if anyone wants to go visit right now. And it's going to be this whole gradual process. Still a lot of shops not open. Maybe some won't be opening at all. So we're definitely in a challenging time. And when you're in such a challenging time, you don't want someone like Rabbi Sacks, who was such a voice up until his sudden tragic passing. It was just like, called us all off guard. We were just starting to pray for him. We heard he was unwell. We're praying. And suddenly this time we're hearing that Biden is now apparently going to become the president of the US. And we have to internalize these two crazy transitions in our life. Like, I'm not going to get my weekly Parsha class from Rabbi. I'm not going to get my opportunity to tune into him when there's a climactic change or a drastic change in the world, like 9/11, and he wrote that unbelievable book, or all the struggles we've had with terrorism and how he's so eloquently discussed it, and all the different lack of unity and divisiveness has gone on more and more as time's going on in the world. And he's been that voice of steady calm and that middle path, clarity and guidance that everyone in the world feels comforted by. And fine, there are people, like in every great person there, who are opposing him. I never actually asked Rav Arush himself. I'm sitting in his studio, so we have to have that respect. That, does he know Rabbi Sacks? Has he had connection? I don't know. Maybe it's a question we can ask on when we have our shir tomorrow night. It'd be something you guys can remind me to ask. And I mean, I'm dedicating this class to Rabbi Sacks' memory and his legacy. And I'm asking you all now, as we start to internalize this and sort this out, I'm asking all of you, what can you, how can you deal with this in a real way? Like, people have, God forbid, through the coronavirus, gone through real tragedies in their families and friends, work, losing a job can be very tragic. You don't feel that stability, that ability to pay your bills or to cover things that are important, like education for children. And the education system's having all kinds of struggles, and then resources, like I mentioned the other week, you don't have the availability to access therapy or medical things that are needed or business opportunities. People have been generating a lot of momentum over the years. There's all these, like, motivational speakers trying to get people to be successful, and now this is really the real time to be motivated, because this is the hardest. As Gedalia Fenster, all the training, all the years, he always says that now this is where it's really being pushed to the limit. Now we really get to prove ourselves, to take all these great, bring the luminaries, like all Rabbi Sacks' like extensive works, extensive amount of emails I've had on my phones over the years, all that guidance. How do we start to bring it alive in our daily life so that we can live now, in this time, right now, and as we're getting into the winter of 2020, 5781, with a Corona challenge? How do we bring it alive so that we don't get pulled down, God forbid, into a sort of depressed, God forbid, I didn't want to say the words, but to give up kind of mindset? How could we ever give up? There's no giving up. And we know that with all those teachings, all that guidance, all that energy, that's the time it was preparing us for now. It was all preparing us for this moment right now. And that was the light from Avram Avinu. Remember Avram Avinu, our great forefather? He was able to empower all the generations with his holy kindness, and they were able to transform the struggles that they went through to have children and to be able to build the new generation with Yitzhak Avinu. And to, like we see in this week's Parsha, we start Parsha with tragedy. We start Chai Sarah. Sarah Emuna, our foremothers, passed away. And now Avram Avinu comes back from such a big test of Kenny Yitzhak. He didn't come back and have his wife waiting for him with, a hug or whatever it is, food and drink and a whole situation of celebration, and they got through the test. He came back to bury his wife. And Avram Avinu had to deal with that. As we see from our forefathers, that often in this world, there's a lot of struggle, a lot of pain, and it's not easy. No one said it's easy. As we posted initially, I was going to call this class, the challenge of dealing with new beginnings are always difficult. That's what it says in Chazal. So becoming the beginning of the Jewish people and that light to the world that the world so much, thank God, can gain from, that beginning days, that beginning foundation of such a reality in the world. And Avinu's doing his wife, and he's giving us the strength to go ahead. And he does. What does he do to his son, Yitzchak Avinu? Not only now has he bought a part of land, the Holy Land, so he has now an acquisition in Eretz Yisrael. He owns Hebron. It's his property and his descendants' property till now. Not only is that happening, but there's also now the reality that Avram Avinu has. Personally, my daughter was born this week, Rivka. So came down the soul, Rivka. Last week's Parsha, and we have the celebration of the Chosna of Yitzhak Avinu this week's Parsha. Last week, now this week we're celebrating his wedding and his continuation of having children with Yaakov, and the continuation with Esav, his brother, and how the world starts becoming reality that we see now. We have this beginning stages. It's all in the forming stage, which is usually the most delicate and gentle and has to be done in a very sensitive way. And that was Avram and Yitzhak Yaakov's power. They were forming the formation, the blueprint of creation at that time till all of eternity. So when we look into Avram's light, as we come in, it says he was Bevarach L'Kol. He had everything. He had everything he needed, including a daughter as well. It says in the explanations that he was blessed with everything by the end of his life. But that mindset of being Samech B'Chelko, of B'Kol Mikol Kol, Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, every one of them being happy with what they had, being able to pass that over to others, to empower us. So that's what we have to do. We have to take this tragic time of Rabbi Lord Sacks passing away, Jonathan Sacks, and I think his Hebrew name, someone can post it there, should be a merit for him. And we should have the ability, I think it's Yaakov is one of his names, part I remember. So we should have in mind that what we're doing is a continuation of all our great teachers until now. And thank God we have Rav Arush here. He should be well. Havda ben Chaim L'chaim. He should be well until 120. We should pray for our leaders to be healthy. One of the things I do on Rosh Hashanah personally, I really pray sincerely for all our leaders, all the people that speak. But not only that, that we should become leaders. That's the point of Rabbi Sacks. We ourselves should be empowered. And he also said an important thing in Tim Ferriss's interview. He spoke about the importance of having a close group of friends who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, who empower you to do your role in the world. And that's something that was funny, was in my group of friends that we were talking about this, but we're all here together to empower each other. You should make sure your group of friends, the people you're connected to online, that you speak to daily, the ones you actually talk to either face to face or through the different, WhatsApp groups or whatever it is, they're people who inspire you to live more fulfilled, more empowered, to believe more and more in your ability to make this world a positive place. That's the kind of people you surround yourself with. All the great, speakers nowadays and people who thank God, who are influencers in a good way, they talk about how it's so important to have a good sphere of influence, people that inspire you, and not to be around people that, God forbid, take away from your ability to impact. So I bless everyone who's listening in that we should learn from Rabbi Sacks, go to his large empire of books and his channels and get inspiration to go ahead. And those, God forbid, that oppose Rabbi Sacks, are people out there. It's not so hard to find them online. I have no opposition towards them, and I'm not trying to get involved in their opposition to Rabbi Sacks on any level. Baruch Hashem, I'm just drawing out the part that inspired me to grow and become, thank God, in my own little way, a little leader in my little sphere of influence, my family, my friends, hopefully a little bit on these Torah classes, these Emuna classes, that we get a little bit of inspiration together and to learn a bit and to hopefully become a better version of myself and to help others become better versions of themselves. And this kind of positive focus, unity focus, this needs to be the focus. So the opposition that's out there is irrelevant, because in the end, life is so short. To waste your time arguing and finding the problems in everyone, who has time for that? I was writing in my United Souls book recently how life is so precious every minute. Like suddenly Rabbi Sacks was here and he wasn't here. Suddenly people with functioning great families, and suddenly they're no longer in a situation where they have a full family. Someone passed away due to this, due to that, God forbid. And we have to really appreciate the people in our life, appreciate the gift of life, to turn this colder time and warm it up with love. And that's one of the things I get so inspired by, like from Avram and Sarah and Rivka, Yitzhak and Rivka, and the whole Shidduch process. Eliezer, my name's Eliezer, went out to find the Shidduch, and comes Rivka into the home, and there's a joy that returns to Yitzhak, and to appreciate the relationships, healthy relationships around us. Like Rabbi Sacks was a role model of marriage. I went home to my family in London. They're not religious, beautiful family. I grew up, thank God, very well, but they're not religious in an open sense. But they had a beautiful article in the Sunday Times, like a very secular English newspaper, and it was a whole bunch of pages talking about the marriage of Rabbi Sacks and his beautiful journey with his wife Elaine, I think that's her name. And they together made a Kiddush Hashem in all the English press about their marriage, just their marriage, not the things he spoke about so intelligently. And the question is, that comes back to me. I talk about unity and trying to have my unity podcast and relationship podcast, and our Emuna is our future podcast. And I now, thank God, was just on a podcast called Think Torah, and I spoke about my own, hopes and dreams with Rav Arush and our Emuna Torah and all the bookings for Nissan Black. And we're trying again to get the Hanukkah Torah up on the road. We're not being up. And we're trying to push as much as we can to create positive energy, positive events, positive words of inspiration in our life. So we're trying. And tomorrow night, like we said, Boker Tov from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I love it when I see the person. It gives me joy. We're reaching off guitar and sing. I mean, his friend Aaron Lagman's going to play guitar, but he's going to sing, and they're going to make great music together for us. And the Emuna Torah, it's going to be soulful music. And that in itself, for me, is my comfort. That there's soul. We have a soul. The Rabbi Sacks' soul. And that's one of my best friends said to me Saturday night when I heard the news and we spoke to each other in London. is, I was we're on the phone and we're talking, and he's just saying, like, it's the point is that he's now up in the world of truth, and he's influencing now everything from that place. So what we get down about, like, the elections or this or that, or we're happy about the election, whatever it is, whatever our political persuasion is, we're not getting political. But the point is, whatever the situation is, economically, struggles, health-wise, everyone's having some sort of people. Someone wants to talk how to find their shidduch, and once again, we get inspiration from this week's parsha to get a shidduch. All this kind of stuff that's going on and on and on in an intense way, and we have to suddenly think and breathe. I have a soul. Rabbi Sacks has a soul. And his soul is communicating strengths, and he's communicating us. He's sending us even more inspiration than he was down here. And he's praying for his family and for his friends, and we wish them all comfort and long life. And he's reaching out to our generation. He's understanding on a very, very deep level. He was just here in this world before this weekend, for Shabbos, and he saw all the divisiveness, saw all the pain, saw all the struggle, the coronavirus. And he's up now with Hashem and all the someone, Melitz Yosha, to see out for us in the higher worlds and in that place of truth. And that's important to remember, that we're not only in this world, as painful as it is when a soul leaves this world, but one of the comforts is it's a soul, it's a neshama. And that's the idea with the music we want to bring here. It has to be soulful music that inspires our soul, not pulls us down to be more physical, to lift us up, to elevate the physical. And that was one of the great lessons from Rabbi Sacks. He went around the world and he inspired the world to become more spiritual. Even the atheists were friends with Rabbi Sacks, and he was able to inspire them, hopefully on some level, or at least the people listening in, to clarify their arguments, to bring out the truth of spirituality of the soul. And that soul talk, when all the world, when more global than anyone, that TED talk that he put up has gone to millions. Unbelievable talk about we becoming more selfless, becoming more soulful, caring for other people. This is the kind of traits from Avram Avinu and the idea of sharing that light with the world. And we come to Yitzhak Avinu now. We come to that time in this week's parsha. We're transitioning now to the time more of Gevurah, more of getting that strength in place so we can deal with tragedy. All of us should have the power to turn around the tragic moments in our lives and to turn them into moments of strength and resilience and courage and power, and do our jobs, all of us, to take those lessons of truth and kindness and peace and to bring it with strength and power, no matter what's going on, no matter what the situation is in the global world and with the corona challenge, that we can do our mission with simcha and joy and with Emuna. And we can apply the lessons of Rav Arush. We can keep developing that relationship with Hashem, to have that hour to clean up our heart so that all the baggage that comes sometimes and allows us the ability to process things, talk to Hashem, allow him to heal our hearts, to help us, to give us the strength to do everything. And that's the key with this spotedness, with talking to Hashem, with that relationship, that Emunator, working on here. I'll see you tomorrow night, please God, and you'll send us your questions. We'll take this time to strengthen ourselves even more, chazak mi'amatz, and go ahead with the rest of this winter with simcha and joy, and we should see all the tragedy turn into joy and happiness for the whole world, including the Sacks family and all of the community of the world, to rejoice together with the Tchias HaMesim and us all, with resurrection of the dead and the Binyan Bayis Shlishi B'Mehei V'Meinu Amen. We'll have that third temple. It's going to be glorious. Can't wait to see you there. Have a great Shabbos. Enjoy. Thanks for listening.